Welcome in, everybody, to Betting Pros. It's me, Joe Pisapia, and we got a great show for you today. It's a little bit of golf talk, that's right, because the Masters is coming at you really quick, and we wanted to bring in my opinion, the best when it comes to golf, whether it be DFS, whether it be wagering. He is the host of the Pat Mayo Experience podcast, and he is an experience unto his own. I have known Pat now for, I don't know, close to a decade. I feel like it's getting like closer and closer to that. It's definitely 7-8 years. I'm just going to say it a decade. But Pat Mayo, I am so excited to have you on here. I know you do so much with DraftKings. I know you do stuff with FTN now. You're everywhere as you should be. And we're just lucky to talk to you today. Pat's going to help us break down the golf slate. Looking forward to the wagering opportunities that lay ahead of us here at Betting Pros. So Pat, welcome to the program. It is so great to have you, my friend.
Thank you very much. Yeah, almost like you, I'm everywhere, like Fantasy National Golf Club, the biggest stats database and tools on the planet. Everyone can get in on Mayo Media Network on YouTube. But like you said, a decade is a really long time. I'm so old now, it freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah, and you're catching up to me in kids. You've got 2 now. I've got 2. I'm done. So I don't know, is 2 your limit? Have you finally said, you know what, this is good, 2 is good, I think we're good, or are you pushing the envelope? I know you got a lot of things in the works, you're moving, you're always doing stuff, but how's the second kid affecting the Mayo household?
Well, 2 is good enough for me. My wife wants more, so we have to kind of figure this out at this point. Having 2 within the span of 18 months kind of push back the timeline a little bit.
All right. So let's talk a little golf here, and we'll leave Pat Mayo's private life private. He's very wonderful for sharing a little taste of it with us here on the program today. Let's talk about the course first. In your opinion, what kind of player does this course favor, and what is that first attention we should pay? Because obviously, last year when you look back at the Masters, Dustin Johnson was going to return to defend his crown, but it was a record-breaking Masters win for him. But who else out there, in your opinion, in terms of style of play, really kind of fits this course?
Generally speaking, you're looking for players that have great ball flights, can get it up and down around the greens, just in case you ever end up missing, because these runoff areas are so slick that if you don't hit the right quadrant of the green, you're no longer going to be on the green. Lag putting, judging the speed of the green. So experience really goes hand in hand with playing well at Augusta. And you mentioned Dustin Johnson and that record-breaking performance in November. I think that's the key, though. November. The course is not going to be quite as receptive this time around. My guys on the grounds at Augusta National right now are telling me firm and fast. It's going to play a bit more challenging than they just had no idea how to control the course because they just have never seen a tournament set up in November before. So expect it to be harder, expect it to be fast and firm, more difficult. So you're looking for second shot players. Who are the best approach players on the planet? That's generally the starting point where you want to go. And if anyone has a bit of extra distance, that only helps to mitigate some of the long distance of the second shot. So someone like Bryson or Dustin or even Jon Rahm, or they're going to have like 175, 160 yards into some of these par fives to set up eagle opportunities where a lot of the players in the field are going to be 200, 225 away. And that's not to say that those players can't compete. It's just their path to getting there is so much more difficult.
All right, let's talk about some of those favorites that you kind of mentioned there at the very top. So if you're looking for odds, you can go to bettingpros.com and you can pull up all the consensus odds from everywhere and see which book that you like the most. But let's kind of go with general speaking here, because if you're looking right now at the top, Dustin Johnson is at plus 950. Then you have Bryson DeChambeau at plus 1150 and Jordan Spieth at plus 1150 as well. So these are the 3 guys at the top of the board. We'll get into that next grouping after that. But are you somebody that attacks the favorites always in these kind of tournaments, or are you somebody that's looking for that outside long shot kind of play? Because these are 3 very formidable guys at the top. So how do you kind of break them down and disseminate between them?
You really can't, is the thing, especially with the odds being so close. And then you can even throw Rahm, Rory, and Justin Thomas into that favorite mix as well. There are 6 of them this week. How do you discern between all of them? Well, I mean, if one of them shows up and plays to 90th or 97th percentile, they are going to win this tournament. It's golf, and that's incredibly difficult to predict. So I'm not someone who generally bets the favorites ever during a tournament. I just don't think that golf odds actually lend itself to that, because when we're thinking about someone like Dustin Johnson, for example, in a field with all of the best players in the world, and of course he just won, what is his actual win equity versus the rest of this field? He's 9.5 to 1. mean, did the odds actually reflect his win equity?
No.
Probably not. He's probably but he is the favorite to win, no matter what sort of model that you run. But it's going to spit out like 5.5%, 6%, 6.5%. So those odds just don't match up. And I just think that casting a wider net at something like the Masters and golf betting in general is really the way to go. So let's just call him 10-1 for the sake of this argument. So you can have one Dustin Johnson at 10-1, or you can still have 4 top 20 players in the world at 40-1 for exactly the same price. If you bet $10, or let's say you bet $100, 10-1 on Dustin Johnson to win, you would get your $1,000 back. Now you could bet $25 on each of those 40-1 guys, and you would get the same net payout, except you have 4 guys. You can avoid a disaster from one of them. That's fine. One of them goes away. Then you have 3 more runners to try to get into the race. So that's the way that I like to approach golf betting a little bit more. It does become tricky at a tournament like the Masters, because going back to 2012 was the last time. I mean, that's when Bubba Watson won his first Masters, and he was the 18th ranked player in the world that year. That is the worst player in the world to win the Masters since. So you're looking at someone inside the top 20 if you really want to find a winner this week.
All right, so who are some of these guys that you're going to target in these clusters? Because, I mean, look, Pat broke it down for you in about as good of a way as you possibly can. I think it's very tempting to see those big names at the top, but what Pat's saying basically is, look, you kind of spread it out a little bit over a few different guys, and the next thing you know, you've got better odds. It's like more outs in poker, basically, when you got more cards on the table. So here's a question for you with the course, with some of these things that you're putting out there. How would you go and attack? Which certain guys do you think are worth the wager in terms of the odds that you like, where they're at, and the style of play that you're talking about is going to be needed to be successful on this course at Augusta this weekend?
I think you're looking at Brooks Koepka. He had knee surgery about 3 weeks ago. He hasn't played since the last week of February when he came second at the WGC against all of the best players in the world. He lost to Colin Morikawa at concession that week. He won in Phoenix 3 weeks before that. And you're looking at good lead-in for him, too. That's always really important. If you go back and look at the past 7 winners of the Masters, they had at least 2 top 15 finishes in their lead-up over the 3 starts coming into the Masters. So Brooks does have that. The biggest concern about him is his knee. Is it going to hold up? And my answer, I have no idea. But what I'm getting is, we talked about the 6 favorites. Now, normally Spieth has played his way into this conversation, obviously, with a win last week in his history at the Masters and just his overall popularity. It'd be like if Tiger had made a cut coming in, all of a sudden he'd be the favorite. Just because he's right. Tiger, people want to bet on him. Spieth is in that category. People want to bet on him. Brooks, people don't really know, and it's affected his odds to the point where I think he is a value bet. If you talk about like daily fantasy, I mean, he might withdraw, who knows? But when you're talking about the betting market, there's no difference between last and second. You need to come first. That's how you win these bets. And Brooks going off at 28-1 right now. If he was healthy and coming in, he would be 11-1 to win. So essentially, you inherit the risk of you don't know where his game is at. You don't know what his health status is at, but he's playing. And my reports from the course said he looks pretty good. He's not limping around or anything like that. So he could be playing possum here. So you're getting Brooks Koepka at over double the odds of all of the other favorites where he would normally be. So we call this gambling for a reason. You're gambling on his health. And I think you're getting really good odds on a guy who is one of the favorites to win.
And how much stock do you typically put into somebody who's hot coming into a tournament? I mean, you sort of alluded to the fact that that's usually a good sign. And it seems like in all sports, too, when a player, individual or team or whatever it might be, when somebody's in a groove, they're in a groove and it tends to carry over. Is there anybody else who kind of fits that bill for you that's been playing well so far that you feel like is, maybe kind of set up for possible success, surprising success in this tournament?
Yeah, I think Matthew Fitzpatrick is that guy. You can find him as deep as 55-1 in some places. Wow. Since coming stateside at the Genesis, which Riviera CC in LA is probably the biggest crossover leaderboard to Augusta. A lot of former Masters champions have won at Riviera, which would make Quail Hollow, the Wells Fargo Championship, another crossover course as well. So those two would be the ones that I'm looking for. Fitzpatrick started out there, and he's added distance to his game. His off the tee game has been really good so far this year, which is surprising because he's sort of like in the Spieth camp in the way that he plays. Like generally he's shorter off the tee, good long irons, great putter, great chipping, but he's added this like extra 20 yards of distance, and it's really propelled him up the leaderboards. He hasn't quite closed out anything so far, but he came 5th at Riviera. He has no finish worse than T11, a tie for 11th in any of his 4 starts so far in America this season. And He's come top 10 at the Masters before. That was his best finish the year that Danny Willett won in 2016. And ever since then, he makes the cut every single year, but no real high-end performances. But he seems like a different player, and he's playing great coming in. If the conditions do play firm and fast, that's to his advantage. He plays hard courses really well. And one of the great things about some of these Brits, if you do want to target them, just looking at the weather forecast right now, it seems like Friday, it could get rained out based on the forecast that we're seeing at the moment. But if they do get out there, it's going to be soggy. It looks like it's going to be super windy. Fitzpatrick is one of the few players in the world who, the worse the elements get, the more to his advantage that actually plays. So in ideal conditions, he's pretty good. In bad conditions, he's better than most of the other players in the field. So bring on the wind if you have Matthew Fitzpatrick. But he's just been playing so well, and he's 55-1. So I think and he's the number 16 ranked player in the world. Like, he's a very good player. I think people are sleeping on him a little bit, and those odds are massive. So there's him, and then there's Webb Simpson that you can get at 40-1 or 45-1, depending on where you look. His form, not so great coming in. He does have 2 top 6 finishes so far this season. Another one at that WGC the first week they actually headed to Florida this season. But he has top 20s at the Masters each of the past 3 years, top 10s each of the past 2 years. And once again, if this comes down to an irons, chipping, and putting competition, you just need Webb Simpson to be okay off the tee. He doesn't need to be Brooks. He doesn't need to be Bryson or Rahm or Bubba Watson off the tee, because that is not his game. What he needs to do is have the exact same path that Spieth does to winning. He needs to not bleed strokes off the tee. He needs to be around field average, maybe slightly better than the field, but not much. And then light it up with the irons, which he can do. Put the lights out, which he can do, and have one of the best short games in the world, which he does have. So 40-1, 45-1. That way you can go Brooks, Webb, Fitzpatrick. And those are 3 guys right away at pretty deep odds.
That's pretty good. Sounds good to me, actually. I feel so much more empowered now. Now, I actually, I'm somebody who doesn't always, look for the golf. I enjoy watching golf. I miss playing golf, but I have 0 time to do it, which is really sad and pathetic. But as my kids are getting older, I feel like now I have a little bit more time where maybe I can get out there again and, dust off the old clubs. I used to be okay. I know you're good, but I used to be all right back in the day.
That is fake news. I am not. I have played 1 round of golf in the past 3 years.
Really? What's see that happen? You have kids, and all of a sudden the golf game goes away. It's terrible. It's the worst thing ever. I mean, if any time you need to go out there and get some time to yourself on the golf course, it's when you have little kids, for God's sake. Here's a question for you. Going back to the Koepka injury, is there any concern with some of the elements when you have a surgery or you're coming off an injury or things like that could have a negative effect, even though we like the player going into it? If there is damp conditions and things like that, it's just kind of putting that out there. Is that any sort of pause for you when it comes to Koepka because of the elements?
No, there's no pause for me, but I completely think that there's probably going to be something that pops through like, oh no, he doesn't look great right here. But that's a part of that. That's the reason that you're getting the odds that you're getting on Brooks at the moment. Like, that is baked in to the risk that comes along with his 28-1. So, like I said, if he withdraws, that sucks. But if he comes second, that also sucks. So I'm trying to find guys that can win, and I know Brooks can win.
All right, so take me through, for those who may be new to DFS golf and whatnot, take me through your approach here. Like, let's say we're on DK and we're trying to, put something together here, and you want to be able to watch the tournament and kind of have some pieces of it. What's the best practice for you to say go out there? I mean, I know you've mentioned some of the names, but what's the approach when you're looking at the pricing of the guys, you're trying to squeeze people in and say, okay, this is how I want to approach the slate here for the Masters from a DFS standpoint? Because I think a lot of people like the wagering standpoint, but then if they want a little bit more action, there's always the DFS side of things too. So how would you go through that?
Well, I would go over to Mayo Media Network and watch my walkthrough videos as I parse through the stats on fantasynational.com and build a model.
As you should, by the way, because Pat does incredible work like this that does coach you through. And I've been on your shows so many times, and I think what's so great is that you always have content there for people who are new to things, that walk them through the process, but you've also got the hardcore people audience too that are, doing this all the time. So do the 2-minute walkthrough for everybody, and then everybody go watch the real walkthrough, please, on Pat Mayo's website, because it's exactly what you need to kind of get you up to speed on the how of doing this.
Yeah, I mean, when you do 400 shows a year, you can cater to.
Is that all? I mean, that just seems like a low number for you. Well, I'm actually disappointed with 400.
400 Pat Mayo experiences a year. There's also other content that comes out in between with that, with the short videos and such. But what you want to be doing here is trying to jam in as much win equity into your 6 players on DraftKings as possible. Do not get lured in by Fred Couples or Bernhard Langer, these like super old dudes who have no shot at winning. Could they make the cut? Sure. Why not? Yeah, great. They can come 40th. That does you nothing for your DraftKings roster this week. So just avoid that temptation, because if you put them in, you can start jamming in all of the top end guys. You're like, my team looks awesome. All I need is Fred Couples to come in ninth. Yeah, well, he's not coming in ninth. So just get that out of your mind right away. There are guys at the bottom. Listen, you can play a balanced approach. You can play a top heavy approach. The pricing is so soft for the Masters that you can build almost any lineup you want. I would say leave $100 at least on the table to make sure that you don't get duped, because you don't want to be splitting that $1 million top prize with anyone. Come on now. And just, if you're going to play, let's say, one lineup, just pick whatever 6 guys that you want, that you feel comfortable with. I could say that you could go as low as Matt Wallace at $6,400. There's a group of guys down there. So there's Matt Wallace, Ryan Palmer, Kevin Na, and Robert McIntyre. Bobby Mack, the Scottish lefty bomber. He is a debutant, which is not great, but he's a lefty and he hits it a mile, which usually goes a really long way to success at Augusta. So you can use those guys at the bottom if you want to jam in all of the guys at the top. You're probably best off looking at setting a cap somewhere around like $6,700 for your last man in. I have a couple lineups with Max Homa, who's won at both of the correlation courses that I talked about, Riviera and Quail Hollow. He won Riviera this year. It's a second Masters, so that's not great, but he's $7,100. He has the perfect game for Augusta. If he wanted to be your last man in, you'd have a really balanced lineup with win equity in it, no matter who else you took. But if you really want to go crazy at $6,700, there is Kim just sitting there waiting.
Wait,
for
could you say that one more time, because it was just so fun?
That would be Kim.
Woo! Yeah, okay.
I mean, he wins, he comes in last, he withdraws. He's the Ricky Bobby of golf. He's not first, he's last. But he rarely misses the cut at the Masters, and he's super cheap. And he's really playing some of the best golf he's ever played coming into this. So that's really encouraging to see from that front. And then, you could start with Spieth if you wanted to, because he's super cheap. He's going to be the highest owned guy on DraftKings. But it does give you he's usually the second man in on a lineup because he's so cheap. If you just wanted to start with Spieth, go Spieth, then Brooks, then Webb Simpson. I mean, that's a core that a lot of people aren't going to have. So there's just so many different ways to play it. Just don't take yourself out of the running to begin with by taking one of these guys who just legit have no shot of winning.
There you have it. All right, real quick, I just want to ask you too, because you got an influx of some really good young players in recent years. Is there anybody maybe out of nowhere, one of the young kids you really want to watch play this weekend that you think is, going to make the cut and really be something maybe sooner than later? Because I think that's always the thing, that sometimes these guys come out of nowhere, and some of these young players are very advanced games. Obviously, we've seen the evolution of golf over the last 20 years. It's a very different game than it was when we were growing up as kids, in terms of these young players really competing once they get onto the tour. So is there somebody that kind of fits that bill that you might want to just be watching some of their rounds as they go into the week?
I mean, it's always fun to watch Hovland, Morikawa, Matt Wolff, Scheffler, and Will Zalatoris. Those 5 guys in particular, and Robert McIntyre for that matter, those 6. I'm just very curious to see how they do in either their first or second Masters. Joaquin Niemann is another one. I think that they all have the right type of games to excel at Augusta in the future. Maybe it comes a bit faster for them along this lines. But Morikawa is one of the most expensive players on the board. He's been a cash cow. He's won 3 times in the past year.
Right.
He's already won a major. Hovland has a Rory style of game, so he's just going to be fun to watch. And like I said, I have money on Homa to win at 100-1. So, I would like him to go win. That would be nice for me. Just come inside the top 10, Mad Max, and we're fine with that. But the young guys, you want to see how they can build their experience and learn the course a lot, but just you don't see a lot of first or second time players at the Masters win. They can compete, but they just don't win. So that really becomes the tough part.
Why do you think that is, Pat? I'm just curious. Do you think it's just the intimidation of that first big event of the year, or is it just the course itself?
It's the course itself. There are so many. There's the reason that guys like Bernhard Langer and Fred Couples can still make the cut at age 61. They know where to hit it. They know where to miss. They know where the ball, the biggest example that I can give you is probably on hole 11, where it's that one where you start at the very top of the hill, and then the green is down to the left after a huge drop in elevation. That second shot with the water off to the left is so intimidating. But you just see Bernhard Langer take it like a 3-iron, play a worm burner down the right hand side. He's like, oh yeah, if it hits that mound, it's going to bounce onto the back of the green over there, and I'm going to be safe. It just takes reps at the course to know that stuff. So for every Tiger or Spieth who ends up winning in his second try, most guys don't do that. It takes that certain level of experience and familiarity of where the course is going to bounce in your favor. And like, you don't want to, like, there's just certain courses, even on the par fives, like, oh, I can't hit it deep right there. If I hit it deep right there, I might chip it into the water coming back up. So if I'm going to miss, I'm going to miss to the left. And guys just have to take their lumps. Some guys get accelerated through that, but most do not. So that would be the way that I would kind of approach it, that experience factor does matter, just because this is such a unique course and unlike a lot of the ones that the players see throughout the course of the year. I did want to give a special shout out, though. If people are looking to get in on some action here, fantasygolfchampionships.com. We're running a thing called the Race for the Mayo Cup. It's a one and done. So you pick one player per tournament, and you can only use them once all year. We've done a condensed version. So it goes from the Masters to the British Open, 17 events. It's $100 to play, $10,000 to the winner of it. And there's only 1,000 spots available. I mean, there's less than that now because it starts at the Masters. It's almost full. If people do want a spot in that, fantasygolfchampionships.com. It's pretty awesome. It's from the same guys that bring you like the high stakes, like NFBC, like that kind of thing. NFBC. No, the Sports Hub guys.
Same group.
It's an awesome contest, and you just pick one guy, and you can use all of the favorites throughout the course of the year if you want. If you're someone that is intimidated by the betting market or doesn't bet a whole bunch of money, like you have $100 to spend, that $100 is going to last you over 17 weeks. So it's great bang for your buck anyway. And there's 10K at the top. Like that's not chump change.
I love it. I think it's fantastic. It's a great alternative. Everyone should go check that out right away. They should also check him out at Twitter at the PME, as always, and check out the Pat Mayo Experience. Pat, where can everybody get all of the great Pat Mayo Media Network empire? Because there's always a demand for it. So where can everybody go, and what else you got going on now that's hot?
Well, fantasynational.com/Mayo will get you 20% off, the most customizable stat engine in the world. All the tools
in the world.
So it's a great product. I love it. I helped develop it with my friend Mike, and it's been gangbusters. People swear by the product. I do too. It's super easy to use. So if you have an intimidation level with anything like tools or anything like that, don't. When it comes to fantasynational.com, again, /Mayo, will get you that 20% off. But the Mayo Media Network on YouTube, just go to it, subscribe to it, by the way, like all the videos, all that stuff that helps us boost up in searches and algorithms, because that's what's important, people. Getting up in the Google algorithm, that's the key to all of it. So I have my show, comes out every day, and it's a mix of sports. It's golf right now. It's going to be football, obviously, especially with the draft coming up. I got Oscar stuff coming up. My show hits on everything, but we do have
you've never had the ex-actor here on the Oscar show. I don't know how that's the case. I mean,
have you seen all the movies this year?
I get them sent to me every year because I still vote for the Screen Actors Guild Awards. So I actually get most of them. Now, this year, I've been lax. Usually I have seen them all. I usually try to see them, but this year I was a little behind because of all the changeover and coming over to Fantasy Pros and doing a lot of the other stuff. But typically speaking, I am a good go-to person because I have seen all of the things, and I do have a history there in the profession for a good decade plus. So just throwing that out there next time. I want the invite for that.
I have one spot left on my Oscars betting show. If you want it and you've seen the movies, it's your spot.
That's the problem. I think this year I'm a bad guest. Next year I'm going to hold you to it. And I'm also going to hold you to it. If you hit the 100 to 1, you and I go out and play a round of golf with that money, or at least a small part of it, somewhere nice. That's all I want.
I mean, I got some more here. Siwoo Kim is 150 to 1. I'm in on that. Kevin Na is 250 to 1. I'm in on that. Listen, no one picks more losers in golf than me from just enticed by these huge odds. But I got money on those guys too. Any of those guys win, I'll treat you to a round of golf. That's not a problem. But Mayo Media Network on YouTube. My show every single day. It's Masters week, so there's a ton of Masters. There's golf every week. There's football every week, plus all the special shows that we do. But the other shows on the network, we have a daily baseball show, comes out every single day at midnight to prep you for the next day. It's 15 minutes long. It's a real easy thing to do. Fantasy baseball picks and bets. There's a daily hockey show, fantasy hockey picks and bets. We have our UFC show every week. It's the #1 UFC betting show in the biz, at least the most watched and downloaded, at least. So you can come hang with Cody and Paul on that one. We try to be all things to all people, and all of the money that you lose along with me, the other shows actually make it up for you. So it's a wash when it comes down to it.
There you have it. And look, you gave us a lot of good information. We appreciate your time and your insight and the advice to kind of spread it around with some of the higher odds and give yourself a couple more opportunities to hit big. So hope everybody enjoys the Masters this week and this weekend. I know Pat Mayo will be watching. Hopefully you will too. And again, make sure you follow us over at Fantasy Pros at BettingPros. Again, that's bettingpros.com for you to get all of the latest in terms of the odds and where you can make your wagers, because you have everything condensed into one spot where you can go ahead and look at all the odds and different players and get the best odds you want in the different places. So that'll do it for us today, but we'll be back again for more betting talk later in the week. Make sure you follow him again at the PME, and enjoy your golf this week, everybody. Thanks for joining in, and we'll see you next time, kids.